Good morning. Good morning. Well, actually, it's good afternoon. Like I said, on the weekend, I'm going to give myself the leeway to go live a bit later in the day so I can relax in the morning and do some other stuff. And hi, everybody. Hey, Porfirio. Oh, wow. I haven't seen you in ages. Hey, Yale. How are you? Good to see you. So today I wanted to talk about shadow. What is our shadow? Why do we want to get to know it? What does it help us with? Because I've been doing some shadow work recently. And a good friend of mine, Shauna, who I've introduced before on this, she has, I called her and I was like, hey, I'm having some problems with this, that, and the other. And so she gave me some good tips and ideas and reminded me about my shadow and my shadow journal. Hey, Autumn. Hey, Luxar. Good to see you, ladies. Yay. Today we're talking about shadow work. So, what is our shadow? Our shadow is all of the things about ourselves that maybe things that we consider negative, right? And maybe we don't even realize that we have these qualities because we have been so good at hiding them. And keeping that shadow, trying to keep that like locked away so that we don't even see it ourselves. But our shadow side is anything that's triggering us, like when we have negative emotions, negative thoughts, judgments on things, judgments on other people. Hey, Lucas. Hey, Beatrice. Hey, how are you? Anytime we have these kind of negative emotions, thoughts, that's our shadow side. So anytime we get upset at somebody, have judgment against someone, we feel fear, anxiety, all of this is all shadow. That's all of our shadow side. And usually we put a negative connotation on that, right? Well, I shouldn't be afraid. I need to toughen up. Or, well, that person made me mad, or they did the thing that was wrong. It's their fault. They messed it up, right? So I've been realizing that some things happened recently in my life and in my relationship. And, it was easy for me to be like, oh, well, that person shouldn't have gotten upset about that. That's such a little thing. That's such a silly thing. And, they're bringing all this negative energy into my space. I'm keeping my space like happy and clear and clean, and they're bringing this negative energy in. Hey, Raul, how are you? And, but then my friend Shauna, she reminded me and she said, well, anything that's coming into your space is something that you're doing. I'm controlling it. I'm controlling what comes into my space. And if stuff is coming into my space, then why am I calling that? Why am I doing that? Taking responsibility for it myself instead of being like, well, it's that person's problem. Because it's very easy for me. And in the past, is what I would have done is just been, okay, well, just that person's being all negative, fine. Move that person away. Get them out of my space. But when we love someone and we want to be in relationship with someone, or then it's learning to not necessarily just push out a person just because they may have some, they have negative energy, or they're upset, or they're angry, or they're frustrated, or whatever that may be, but to go into myself and say, what am I doing? How am I bringing this? What is it that I needed to learn that needs to come from this, right? And that is actually looking into the shadow and saying, okay, what's going on here that I'm doing, right? Because if we're bringing stuff into our space, and this is kind of advanced, I would say. Most people might not get this, but this is sort of the advanced spirituality, to understand that you're in control of your space, and we are each in control of our space and the things that we bring into it. And even if it feels like it's someone else that's doing it and they're bringing it into our space, it's really us. Where is it coming from? What is the lesson that my soul wants to learn, right? What are the soul wounds that are being triggered by that person, right? So if I am And the other thing she said that just was like, oh my God, that's so right, is like, if I'm making someone else wrong, then I am not holding my boundaries. Like, why am I taking on that person's upset, right? Why am I not able to just be at peace? And what is that person being upset triggering in me? What's going on in me? What shadow side is it triggering in me? And so I sat down this morning with my shadow journal and I wrote it down. I was like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. And as I started to say, what is it in me that's happening, right? Why is this triggering me in this way? Because it is possible for people to be upset and for you not to take that on. You can just be like, okay, I appreciate you, I understand you, and you're going through that, and you're not wrong to go through that, but I'm not also not taking it on. I'm not taking responsibility for those emotions. I'm not I'm not letting that like totally disrupt my emotional state, right? So how do we do that? And that's really, I was like, boy, how do I do that? Because if someone is close to me, I do take on their emotional turmoil, I guess, and it really does affect me. So that was the next piece. Like, how do I not do that? Well, because it must be triggering something in me for me to be taking it on. So that was another thing, like looking at what are the things that might be triggering me in me. Is it a sense of maybe wanting to be perfect? So oftentimes when we were kids, we would have a sense of abandonment, or feel like our parents wouldn't love us if we weren't perfect, or they would leave us. And maybe if, your parents did leave you or did ignore you, or, maybe they got divorced or they got separated, and it can cause a sense, especially in children, that somehow it's my fault, or maybe I wasn't perfect enough. And so even as adults, that can continue to trigger us, right? When someone gets upset, we might go into a place of fear, or anger often comes from fear, right? So we can go into that place feeling like, okay, well, I can't be wrong, because if I'm wrong, then I'm not perfect, and then that person's going to leave me, right? And these are the kind of things that can get triggered from those early childhood experiences that we may not even realize are triggering us. So that's an example of shadow side, right? Like, okay, well, why is this upsetting me so much? Do I have a sense that I have to be perfect in order to be loved, in order for someone not to leave me? Like, is that going on in some subconscious level inside of me? What else might it be, right? Why do I maybe have a sense that I have to be perfect, right? And that gets me so upset when someone implies that I'm not, okay? Or, and it's funny because of course we know we're not perfect, right? But there can be a sense, especially in relationships, where that can trigger us in a way that we know is totally illogical, but that's coming from something, in our past or in our childhood, that it's not like we have to fix it. We just have to shine a light on it and see, oh, that's where that might be coming from, right? And so that was kind of interesting today. And I'm going to say it was fun, but it was, it kind of was to be like, okay, let me turn this around and let me see, where am I creating this from, right? Because when I was in meditation yesterday too, and praying about it, I was realizing that, this is my opportunity to learn to, often in my life, I've distanced myself from negative emotions and from negative emotional people, right? And that's one way to deal with it, and that works for a while, and that can be very helpful, and sometimes we need to do that. But there are other times, and I think it's a level of growth, where we can be around people in that state and be with people like that, and hear their pain and not feel like, and this is like what I'm saying from my level of growth, not feel like I need to distance myself or separate myself, or just leave, get away, push them away, or push away that negative emotion or the thing that's causing that negative emotion. And it might be, might be some really difficult newspaper article, or hearing about trauma or concentration camps in China, or it might be, things like that that really make us upset, and we're just like, oh, I got to push that away. I don't want to feel that negative emotion. I need to push it away, right? And then we don't pay attention to some of those things because we're trying to avoid the negative emotions that those things bring up. And so what is kind of the higher level that we can go to, or that I can go to, right, is to learn to be in that space and be with that, and not, but still not let it necessarily throw up my whole inner world, right? Not throw me off inside to where I'm struggling to work or to focus or other things like that, right? And that's something, I think that's a very tricky thing. I haven't figured out exactly how to do that yet, but that is, I think, the path, right? There's a verse that says, peace that passes understanding, right? Peace in the midst of a storm. What does that mean? It means when there's turmoil and storm and emotional upheaval and negative things going on around us, are we able to maintain our own inner calm and peace? And how do we do that? And if we're not doing that, if I'm not doing that, then I need to look at myself and say, what's being triggered in me that is stopping me from being able to do that, right? There's something emotionally that's being triggered in me that is stopping that. And so then that's what it means to do your shadow work. To do your shadow journal is to go and think about it and write that down and say, where is this negative emotion coming from inside of me? It's not just his problem. It's not just him that's doing it, right? I have brought this into my life for a purpose, to help me to grow, or to help me to identify something in myself that maybe needs further growth and healing and development. And, what do I do with that? How do I do that? What's going on? What is, when those negative thoughts come up or judgment comes up, right? Anytime, like I said before, anytime you're judging the other person, thinking they're wrong and that's their problem, then that's when you're not taking responsibility for yourself and for your part in that, and for and for just being the conscious creator that you are. Like, I'm a conscious creator. So if I bring something, I've brought something into my life, then that's my responsibility. I did that. I brought that into my life. I brought that person into my life, right? So what are they here to teach me? Not, and what are these things happening that are there to teach me? It's not just like, oh, it's they're wrong or it's their fault, right? And so that's kind of next level taking responsibility. And I know we've talked about radical responsibility and taking responsibility, but this is sort of, this is definitely the next level, only for advanced practitioners. So, but yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you guys about the importance of doing shadow work. And my friend Shauna, she is absolutely amazing at helping people to see and to express and to learn to love their shadow, and to learn to have that, deal with it without judgment, but just to shine a light on it. And the light is just awareness. When you shine that awareness on it, hey, Mariana, then it's not hiding there in the dark, pulling your strings, right? It's able to be like, oh, that's what that was. Okay, well, I see that that's a hidden fear that I have, or that's because there's always, this is the key, there's always a beautiful message at the bottom of that shadow, right? There's always something beautiful. And if you don't shine the light on it, you just think, oh, this fear is bad, or this trigger is bad, or I don't want to be, I don't want to think about that part of me, right? I think that is imperfect or whatever. But when you actually shine a light on it, you're like, oh, wow, there really is something beautiful underneath it. And what's that beautiful thing, right? So if it's a fear, then there's a beautiful part that is just trying to protect you, right? If there's a fear of abandonment, for instance, then what's the real message under that is just a desire to be loved and a desire to be connected. So that's the beauty that's hiding under that piece that we think is shadow, right? Even like a desire for perfection is a desire to be loved and to not be abandoned. So there's just something really beautiful there. There's a beautiful message that's hiding beneath each of these shadow things, whether it's fear or anger right? Oftentimes under judgment, what is it? Oftentimes the thing that's hiding under judgment is a desire to make something work, right? We want it to work. We want that relationship to work. We want it to be beautiful. We don't want it to fail. And that can be what's hiding under judgment or criticism is we're like, okay, well, I need to judge this. I need to fix this. I need to correct this because otherwise this beautiful thing and this beautiful relationship could fail. You see? And that's the sweetheart message. That's the loving message that's hiding under those things that we do or other people do to us. So it's just a reminder to me to look for that sweetheart message that's under that seemingly negative reaction and that shadow turmoil. So anyway, anybody have any questions? Anything you'd like to contribute or say? I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, so this is a good reminder to me, and it's a good reminder to all of us. If you have a shadow journal, a shadow journal is just a journal where you write down this stuff. You write down things that are triggering you. You write down your emotions, interactions that upset you. You write those down, and you start to ask those questions, like, for you. It's not their fault, right? It's like, what am I doing? Why am I being triggered? What's my shadow? And it's an incredibly powerful exercise in not just taking responsibility, but the thing is we can only control what is inside of us. We can't control what's in other people, right? But on the other hand, we do bring things into our lives as like higher being conscious creators. So I hope you guys have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful weekend. And if you have time to do a shadow journal and you want to figure out more about what that is, definitely go and you can, I think I maybe done a couple videos on it, but Shauna has a website, journeyintotheheart.net, which is great. And she does a lot of really good work on shadow stuff. So thank you for the hearts. And so definitely check that out if you can, because she's a master shadow worker. And it's always nice to have someone to call to remind you about where to look to get back on track. So I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend, and that you, if you get the chance, if something upsets you, shine a little light on it, and then look what's going on underneath it, whatever that negative emotion. Look for that sweetheart message that is where it's coming from. Okay? All right. You guys have a great weekend. Bye. And I will probably be on late tomorrow again. So I'm thinking maybe around 1 p.m. On the weekends. So we'll see how that goes.